Hello. Welcome to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and I'm here with part 6 of our bombshell court filing, which was the Franks Memorandum that we're going over. This is the long document that talks about Odinists and their role in potentially the Un-Alivings of Abby and Libby, rather than Richard Allen. So, last time we left off, we were talking about Brad Holder and his involvement, reasons why he is potentially involved in the Un-Alivings, and his involvement in Odinism. So he is definitely an Odinist. He practices it. He drew rune on his hand, remember, that looked just like the rune that was on one of the girls' bodies. I think it was Libby's body. And he posted a picture of the rune that he drew on his hand on Facebook, and no one else has known what the crime scene looked like. So it's curious that he has the exact same rune. He also posted other things about Odinism and runes and other things that were kind of related, pictures that were similar to what the crime scene looked like, of women, girls, I don't know how old, but just other things that he's posted on Facebook that look similar to what the crime scene looked like. So, like recreated scenes. Excuse me. So, we're going to start now. This next section is going to take us into Elvis Fields. And remember, he is the one that told his sisters some information, which is really interesting. So we'll get into it as we go along. So Brad Holder's Facebook page links him to Elvis Fields in Rushville, Indiana. Elvis has admitted to participating in the Un-Alivings and to now being part of a quote-unquote gang, even providing intimate details of the crime scene that only those participating in it would know. Elvis followed Brad Holder on Facebook and even recreated Brad Holder's Facebook pages like a fanboy. And I just think that's funny that they wrote like a fanboy in court proceedings. So it makes sense that near the finish of this section detailing some of the evidence that links Brad Holder to the Un-Alivings by supplying the court with certain Facebook posts by Brad Holder that were mimicked and even recreated by a man named Elvis Fields. This will allow for a smooth transition to the next suspect on whom this memo will be focused, Elvis Fields. All right, so we're getting into him now. So who is Elvis Fields, this man that was mimicking Brad Holder's Facebook posts from 126 miles away? You will soon learn that he is a man that has admitted to both of his sisters that he was involved in the Un-Alivings, a man that told his sister that because of his involvement, he is now part of a quote-unquote gang and had a quote-unquote brother. A man who, after providing his DNA, asked police that if he could explain why his spit might be on one of the girls, would he still be in trouble? And then admitted to a sister that he did, in fact, spit on one of the girls. And perhaps most incriminating, a man who provided intimate details about the crime scene, the type of detail that only those that were there at the crime scene could possess. So the only knowledge of people, they have knowledge of only people that would have been at the crime scene, to have seen it. So it's a little suspicious. All right, so upon closer inspection, you will learn that Brad Holder and Elvis Fields did in fact have a common connection, Johnny Messer. But Elvis lied to police, claiming that he did not know Johnny Messer. in a videotaped interview with Elvis, the state of Indiana finally provided this videotape to the defense in their latest data dump in September. So he denied knowing Johnny in an interview. And the defense didn't even know this until September, which is just a couple months before trial. Evidence provided by law enforcement shows that Elvis Fields lived in Rushville, 125 miles away from Delphi. Additionally, Elvis, at first glance, seemingly had no connection to Delphi or Logansport. However, once law enforcement officers Greg Ferenczi and Kevin Murphy learned that Elvis had confessed to his sisters, and especially after Elvis posed a bizarre question to Murphy, these curious law enforcement officers wanted to look at Elvis's Facebook page and ultimately compared it with Brad Holder's Facebook page. What they found was extremely telling. Elvis was obviously following Brad Holder on Facebook, as evidenced by the multiple posts that Elvis mimicked Holder. Elvis Fields was not only following Brad Holder's Facebook page, but Elvis was also emulating Brad Holder by recreating Brad Holder's Facebook posts in the year leading up to Abby and Libby's Un-Alivings. The defense is attaching a series of 9 side-by-side photographs created by law enforcement. On the left side of each exhibit is a photo that Brad Holder posted on his Facebook page. On the right side of each exhibit is a photo that Elvis Fields posted on his Facebook page, in which Elvis took the time to actually recreate the photograph that Holder posted. They are marked exhibits 55 through 63, highlighting just a few of those side-by-side photographs. Exhibit 51 shows that Brad Holder posted an image of brass knuckles surrounded by other weapons, aka guns, next to Elvis Fields' mimicked post, recreating a photo featuring brass knuckles surrounded by more weapons, aka knives. Exhibit 56 shows that Brad Holder posted an image of Holder placing a single arrowhead in his hand next to Elvis Fields' mimicked post, recreating a photo of Elvis placing a single arrowhead in his hand. So there's a definite connection between these two. Or at least Elvis is recreating Brad. Whether they're friends or not, he seems to know and like what Brad's doing on Facebook. All right, so Exhibit 57 shows that Brad Holder posted an image of 2 arrowheads near each other next to Elvis's mimicked post, recreating a photo of 2 arrowheads next to near each other. Exhibit 58 shows that Brad Holder posted a photograph of a single clear mason jar next to Elvis's mimicked post, recreating a photo of a single clear mason jar. So I wonder what the mason jar is for. Unfortunately, law enforcement failed to date the attached exhibits. Okay. So the mimicking is certainly curious. Yes, it is. Especially when Brad Holder's son dated Abby Williams, and when Elvis Fields, 125 miles away, confessed to both of his sisters on 2 different occasions that he was involved in the Un-Alivings. The confession included telling one sister that Abby Williams was a troublemaker, and that is why he, Elvis, used sticks to form horns on Abby's head. Okay, nothing on that one. All right, and admitting to another sister, that he was in big trouble and going away for a while because he was present when the girls were unalived and that he spit on the girls. Disgusting. And just vile. On October 24th, 2017, Elvis told his sister Joyce Moffat that, quote, "I am in trouble. I am going away for a long time. I was on that trail in that bridge with those girls when they were unalived. There were 2 other people there with me when it happened. I spit on one of the girls after they were ended." End quote. And that was from an interview with his sister, Joyce Moffat. All right, so What are the odds that Brad Holder's son is dating Abby Williams and 125 miles away, a fanboy of Brad Holder named Elvis Fields was mimicking Brad Holder's Facebook posts, and that fanboy admitted to being involved in the unalivings of the girls? Yeah, what are the odds? It's too much to be a coincidence, in my opinion. So for Liggett and Holman, apparently this coincidence was nothing important. Yeah, I guess they didn't notice that. Moreover, Trooper Roland Purdy refused to concede that Elvis's mimicked and recreated Facebook posts proved any connection between Holder and Fields. Trooper Purdy explained that the mimicked and recreated photos between Brad Holder and Elvis Fields might just be a coincidence. And that was from a deposition with Purdy. Okay, just a coincidence, I guess. Just a coincidence. All right, so Liggett failed to inform Judge Diener of the evidence supporting Brad Holder's involvement in the unalivings. Before moving on to the evidence that supports Elvis Fields' involvement in the unalivings, the defense finishes the Brad Holder section by 1. Discussing Holder's purported alibi, and 2. Showing the evidentiary link between Holder and Elvis that supports Holder luring Elvis to get involvement in the unalivings in order to join him, Holder, and Holder's gang. And 3, the circumstances surrounding Unified Command dropping the ball by intentionally or recklessly clearing Holder as a witness within weeks of the unalivings. All right, so we're going to get into that. Holder's alibi was not scrutinized, and evidence supports Holder recruited mentally infirm Elvis Fields to assist in the abduction and unalivings while Holder tried to stand behind a shady alibi. So Holder's alibi was not even close to fully vetted. Whenever Holder's name was brought up as a suspect, one reason that kept popping up as to why Holder was cleared as a suspect was his purported alibi. An unclassified FBI report revealed the work, or lack of work, that law enforcement performed to check out Holder's alibi. This document is marked as Exhibit 65. This report was prepared on April 13th, 2017. In this report, Pulaski Sheriff's Deputy Frederick Rogers, quote, followed up at Liberty Landfill in attempt to verify the employment and work schedule of Bradley Holder, end quote. Susan Case from Human Resources stated that Holder's time card showed that he, Holder, clocked in at 4:55 a.m. and clocked out at 2:45 a.m. Chase also said that she would be the only person that could change or manipulate the electronic time card. So Chase further admitted that there was a security camera on site, and here is how Deputy Rogers memorialized that part of their conversation. Case advised Brad drives a, quote, junky red truck to work with a G on the front bumper. Case advised the security camera at the scales may have picked up his vehicle coming and going on that date. Case advised that Holder stays on property for his lunch break. So he shouldn't have most likely left for the day. If he did, it would be something out of his routine. So he starts at 5 a.m. and leaves at 2:45. The short report concludes with this. Case provided this officer a copy of the timesheet for the week showing Brad indeed had clocked in and out on February 13th, and he was still at work on today's date. And that is, if Holder was at work the day the deputy showed up to vet Holder's alibi, it would have been a great time to interview Holder and those around him to determine if Holder was at work on Monday, February 13th. But I'm guessing this footnote is here for a reason, and that means law enforcement did not do that. They didn't follow up. So here's what we don't know about Holder's alibi at work. Number 1, did someone clock in for Holder? There is nothing that Chase said about the clocking in process that would prevent someone else from clocking in for Holder. Whether Holder was actually at work on February 13th, 2017 could have been better vetted by simply talking to Holder's workmates and would have been on the job site on February 13th, 2017 to determine if they remember Brad Holder being present that day. So, yeah, duh, you should have just asked when you were there investigating if anybody had seen him and if he was working that day, or if anybody noticed anything off that day, or if anybody clocked in for him that day. Did someone clock out for Holder? That could have been. All right, so the same logic applies to this question. Perhaps Holder clocked in, but then left early and asked one of his work buddies to clock out for him. It is unknown whether Odinists worked alongside Holder at the landfill, as it appears that Deputy Rogers did very little investigative work on this very important topic of Holder's alibi, nor did anyone at Unified Command provide instructions for law enforcement to fully investigate every aspect of Holder's alibi. So remember, Unified Command is actually it consists of head law enforcement agents like Holder, or not Holder, who am I thinking of? I got too many cases that I'm talking about that I can't remember. But anyways, like, why aren't they holding the law enforcement accountable for not even doing their jobs here and finding out if Holder was there or not? I mean, come on. It really doesn't take that much. That's what investigating is. All right, so did Chase actually watch the video? The report is so poorly written that it can't be determined whether Holder's distinctive vehicle could be seen on the video or whether Chase was merely claiming that, hey, if you want to watch the video from the camera placed near the scales, it may show Holder's truck coming and going. So she doesn't know if it was there or not. Well, based on the way the report is written, you can't tell if she had seen it and said, yes, for sure, I saw his truck, or if she's just saying, like, hey, you can go look at the video if you want, which are two totally different things. Number 4, did anyone in law enforcement watch the video alluded to by Chase, and if so, what did they see? It is quite maddening that the report refers to the possibility that a simple review of a video could determine whether Holder's, quote, junky red truck with a G on its front bumper was seen coming and going on February 13th. However, the fact is that this report does not inform anyone of whether law enforcement either ever viewed this video. It would be presumed that if the deputy did watch the video, he would have memorialized it. So you would think he would have gone and looked at it had he done a thorough investigation and wrote down that he viewed it and what he saw. That should have been done, but apparently it was not. Even if Holder's truck was viewed on the video, was Holder the person driving the truck as it arrived at the work site? Perhaps the video would be able to show the image of the person driving the truck to see if it was actually Holder. Even if Holder's truck was viewed on the video, was Holder the person driving this truck as it left the work site? So same thing goes here. In the event that Holder wanted to appear that he was showing up for work, but then left early, if someone else's vehicle who picked up Holder at the site to get to Delphi in the early afternoon. So they're saying somebody, maybe Elvis, maybe that Messer guy, Johnny Messer, maybe one of them picked him up at the site and then somebody came back and took his truck. I don't know. Or he had a work buddy drive his truck home. Or did he lend it to somebody? Like, we need to know these things. But it wasn't even looked at. All right, so in the event that Holder wanted to appear showing up for work, but then left early in someone else's vehicle who picked Holder up at the site to get to Delphi in the early afternoon, it would be important to know who was driving the truck when it left the property. It is only 24.3 miles or 32 minutes. I like that they put the minutes because I go by minutes too. Not miles, minutes. From Buffalo, Indiana to Delphi, Indiana. And that's from Google. All right, so even if Brad Holder actually clocked out at 2:45, he could have been in Delphi before 3:15. If Holder left at noon and had a buddy of his clock him out of work a couple hours early to create the illusion that Holder was there all day, then Holder could have been on the trail by 1. This is why watching the video and interviewing employees who worked alongside Holder would have been a critical step to take in the investigation. And at this point, it's way too far out, and people are not going to remember where they were or if he was there. So we're years away now. Asking simple questions to his workmates like, did Brad leave for any period of time? Did Brad leave early? Was Brad even here? There is no excuse at all for failing to interview employees and for failing to watch the video. These failures leave open the real possibility that Brad Holder's alibi cannot be trusted without further vetting. What do you guys think? Do you think they did a thorough job investigating? Do you think they were trying to not look at Brad? Did police ever consider that Brad Holder convinced his minions to abduct and participate in sacrificing the girls until he arrived? Evidence supports this theory, including a sketch of a man observed milling around the high bridge near the spot of the famous video. That sketch resembles Elvis Fields. Even Trooper Purdy can't deny that. So, hold on. I want to see if I can open. I want to find a file here. Because I have the pictures, remember, from the last video. I have side-by-side video photos of the sketches. I was going to show it. So anyways, while I'm looking for that, where's my PDF? Hold on. Okay, I can't find it right now. Gosh darn it. Shoot, I cannot find it. Why can't I find it? Anyways, alright, so I'll keep reading here. Maybe I can find it in a minute. No. Okay. Forget it. Sorry. Anyways, alright, so did police ever consider that Brad Holder convinced his minions to abduct and participate in sacrificing the girls until he arrived? Evidence supports this theory, including a sketch of the man observed that looked like Elvis Fields. Even Trooper Purdy can't deny that fact, that Elvis Fields looks like the sketch. All right, what do they say about this? Charles Manson did not serve a prison sentence for actually being the person who stabbed Sharon Tate 16 times. Manson's minions committed the heinous acts. So they're maybe trying to say that Brad is the leader and he has people doing his bidding for him, perhaps? So was it ever considered that Holder had devised the plan to end those girls and used other people to do his bidding? According to Unified Command's Jerry Holman, it was considered, but there's no evidence that we have no evidence indicating that he was commanding people to go end other people. And that came from Holman's deposition. But did they ask? Did they even look into him? Very hard. It doesn't seem like they did. All right. No, at least in my opinion. And from this document, it doesn't. All right, so then Holman commented on the very serious topic, quote, quote, I mean, ask Richard Allen if Brad Holder told him to go end the girls. I mean, you guys communicate with the girls that, sorry, got like a frog in my throat. I mean, you guys communicate with the guy that ended the girls, end quote. That's what Holman said. Ask Richard Allen if Brad Holder told him to go end the girls. I mean, you guys communicate with the guy that ended the girls. So he said that to Allen's lawyers about Brad, it seems. Holman said it to somebody. It's interesting. Like, you've already convicted the dude. Then Holman commented on this very serious topic. So I just read that. Holman's comment offers insight into Holman's mind-blowing lack of curiosity and his limited investigative skill set. Holman's refusal to consider whether evidence supported the possibility that Holder was directing minions is par for the course of what the defense has learned from a review of the evidence. Since Holman is still not interested in facts that support the possibility or even likelihood that Holder was directing others to participate in the crime, here are a few pieces of evidence that support the premise that Holman and Liggett and all of the unified command either recklessly or intentionally ignored. So this information was most likely overlooked on purpose. Number 1, Brad Holder was from Logansport, Indiana, close to Delphi. Patrick Westfall was from Delphi, Indiana. Johnny Messer was from Rushville, roughly 125 miles from Delphi. Elvis Fields was from Rushville, roughly 125 miles from Delphi. Rushville's Johnny Messer was a Vinlander/Odinite and good friends with fellow Vinlander Odinite Brad Holder from Logansville. Remember, Vinlander is a type of Odinist. It's like a sect or a division of it, but you can use Vinlander and Odinite as like one and the same. They're kind of this document said that they were synonyms. You can use them interchangeably. All right, so Rushville's Johnny Messer and Vinlander Odinite and good friends with fellow Vinlander Odinite Brad Holder from Logansport. Rushville's Johnny Messer was a Vinlander and an Odinite and good friends with fellow Vinlander Odinite Patrick Westfall. So there's connections, like everyone's connected. Rushville's Johnny Messer recruited for his Vinlander gang, quote, all the time. And that came from Johnny's ex-girlfriend told investigators that Johnny attempted to recruit others, quote, all the time. And they provided an affidavit, I think. All right, so number 8, investigators learned that in the summer of 2016, Johnny Messer was recruiting men that lived in his Rushville apartment to attend Vinlander meetings. That came from the Odin Report. Also, that summer of 2016, Elvis Fields was already mimicking and recreating Brad Holder's Facebook posts. That comes from an exhibit, the side-by-side photos that they used as an exhibit here, which we don't get to see. I think all the exhibits were sealed. Let's see. All right, so the fact that Elvis was recreating Brad Holder's Facebook posts, this fact would provide evidence that Johnny Messer had already recruited Elvis Fields and introduced him to Brad Holder, and that Elvis was now following the group's leader, Brad Holder, on Facebook, and that Elvis is also emulating Holder. So like I said, Brad is the leader, and now this other person, Johnny, is recruiting people. This Johnny lived near Johnny Messer's from Rushville. Who else is from Rushville? Elvis. So he recruited him, and Elvis is now trying to recreate Brad's Facebook posts. The recruiter, Johnny Messer, was a friend / acquaintance of Elvis Fields, also from Rushville. So they were both from Rushville. The recruiter, Johnny Messer, therefore knew both Brad Holder and Elvis Fields. The recruiter, Johnny Messer, knew both Patrick Westfall and Elvis Fields. That's what they're claiming here. The recruiter, Johnny Messer, admitted in his October 23, 2018 videotaped interview that Rod Abrams, Ned Smith, and Elvis were all interested in joining the same club that he, Messer, and Holder were involved in, but he, Messer, claimed that he did not think Vinlanders would be interested in them. So these three guys were interested in joining, but Messer said the Vinlander group might not want them. This whole dialogue between LEO, Todd Click, and Johnny Messer took place beginning at the 14-17 mark. Ned Smith claimed to be the father figure of Elvis and Rod Abrams and was rarely separated from Elvis. See Elvis's videotaped interview. Ned claims throughout the video that he is a father figure to Elvis and Ned. Ned claims to be around Elvis every day in 2017. It might be telling that Ned Smith paid for Elvis's attorney and that Ned Smith wanted to be present at Elvis's interview. That's weird. Interesting. And where did I leave off? All right, so Messer's comment appears as a self-serving attempt to distance himself from being the person that connected Holder with Elvis, in light of the fact that Dougie, a man who was mentally infirm, had been affiliated with the club. See footnote 102. Odin report. Taylor Hornaday describes how Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall took advantage of a mentally infirm man by the name of Dougie, asking him to perform menial tasks for them. Also find attached Exhibit 69, which is a summation that appears was prepared by police for a PowerPoint presentation that also discusses lower functioning Dougie being used by Holder and Messer as a gopher. That was prepared by the police. So the police had that in their PowerPoint presentation about Dougie being used as a gopher by Holder and Messer. Wow, that's crazy. All right. And it was overlooked. All of this was overlooked, and Richard Allen is sitting in prison now. Doesn't make any sense to me. Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall were known for taking advantage of mentally infirm men who wanted to join Holder's and Westfall's gang, the Vinlanders. When mentally infirm men wanted to join Brad Holder's and Patrick Westfall's gang, they would take advantage of those men, including have these mentally infirm men perform tasks. So same thing, they would perform menial tasks for them. Elvis Fields was a mentally infirm man. Trooper Kevin Murphy described Elvis as having, quote, the mental capacity of maybe a 7 or 8-year-old, end quote. So that's tough. That's going to be tough to deny that they're trying to take advantage of him. Evidence provided by law enforcement shows that Elvis Fields, 125 miles away, and with no connection to Delphi or Logansport, was following Brad Holder on Facebook. Evidence provided by law enforcement shows that Elvis Fields was not only following Brad Holder, but that Elvis was also emulating Brad Holder by taking the time to recreate Brad Holder's Facebook posts in the year leading up to Abby and Libby's Un-Alivings. Elvis's Facebook mimicking of Holder's posts may show that Elvis Fields was enamored of Brad Holder and also wanted to be a part of Holder's gang, the Vinlanders. Holder was known to prey on lower functioning members of society and to take advantage of them, and Elvis was a lower functioning member of society. Was Holder grooming Elvis, hoping that down the road Elvis would do Holder's bidding? It's a great question. Did Elvis actually do Holder's bidding? Another great question. Evidence supports that Elvis did in fact do Brad's bidding. An eyewitness observed a man within a few hundred yards of the Monon High Bridge where the girls were abducted. The man looked like Elvis Fields. The name of the eyewitness is Teresa Liebert. So remember, she's the one that saw him. Now we'll get into the details of it, but remember there's a couple neighbors that are near that area where the bridge goes down, and she's one of them. So she saw this guy that she described to law enforcement and became sketch number 2, which was the Elvis Fields sketch. I wish I could find my PDF. I gotta organize my files here. Anyways, all right, so Teresa Liebert is the witness, and Teresa lived on the same side of the Monon High Bridge, only 560 yards from the very place where the famous Down the Hill video was taken. So I would assume everyone here most likely has seen or heard of the video, the Down the Hill. This was released by law enforcement. It was edited. So we got a portion of audio and a very slim portion of video of a man walking on the bridge, but it's like on a loop. You can see they did some editing for that, and I don't know why they did the editing that way or why we got it separately, but because you hear the audio isn't like, the audio is not from that moment when the video is being taken, so they're only giving us little pieces and they've edited to what they want us to see. So I'm not sure why we don't have all of the video, but all right. So did Elvis actually do Holder's bidding? We read that. We think yes. Teresa Liebert, she's on the other side of Monon High Bridge, only 560 yards away. She lives on a paved road that almost ends a paved road almost ends right in front of Teresa's home. However, the road turns onto a private gravel road that continues toward the Monon High Bridge and services the home of Brad Weber. So he's the other neighbor there. Around 8:30 a.m. on the morning of February 13th, Teresa Liebert observed a man on 625 West, that's the road that they're on near her house, standing near mailboxes used by property owners nearby. Okay. Teresa Liebert Teresa Liebert has never observed the homeowners walk to their mailboxes because of the distance from their homes to the mailboxes. The homeowners drive their vehicles to drop off and pick up their mail. Teresa Liebert has never seen this man before. Teresa Liebert was in the passenger side of the truck being driven by her husband, Dave Liebert. The man Teresa Liebert observed was standing very close to the passenger side of the Liebert truck as they passed him. Teresa Liebert, sitting higher in the truck, had a good view of this man's face as she passed him and noticed that the man appeared to be startled and concerned at being seen. Teresa Liebert, in fact, turned to her husband and asked something like, "What do you think he's doing?" After passing the man and driving approximately 50 more yards to their driveway, the Lieberts exited the truck. After exiting the truck, Teresa looked in the direction of where the man had been and noticed he was gone. Teresa did not see him on the road at all, so he just ducked and disappeared. Teresa believes the man had to immediately and intentionally hide after they passed him on the road, which would explain his sudden disappearance. The only reason anyone would be walking down that dead-end road would be if they were lost or if they were going to see the Liebert family or the Weber family. So, there you have it from a local. The only reason someone would be there is if they were a local coming to the Liebert or Weber house, or if they were lost. Teresa also remembers that the man she observed was wearing a canvas jacket that had of a nondescript color, but doesn't remember a hat. Later, Teresa Liebert, so remember there's the two sketches. The first sketch, the guy has a hat. The second sketch, the guy has like curly hair. Almost curly hair. Later, Teresa Liebert was asked to provide a description of the man's face that she observed that morning. She did provide the description. The sketch of the man that Teresa Liebert observed that morning closely resembles Elvis Fields. Even State Trooper Purdy had to admit that the Teresa Liebert sketch and the photo of Elvis Fields resemble one another. That's according to his depo. Find attached the Teresa Liebert sketch marked with Exhibit 71. Okay. After the girls were unalived, Elvis told his sister that he was now part of a gang and had a brother. Was the gang mentioned by Elvis Vinlanders, and was the brother Brad Holder? Again, these are the types of questions the monumentally inept Unified Command have been asking, or should have been asking. And that's pretty funny. Monumentally inept Unified Command. All right, so Trooper Jerry Holman indicated in his deposition that there was no evidence that Brad Holder may have directed others to end the girls. As stated earlier, Holman even proclaimed that Holder was not even really a suspect. All right, so the defense disagrees. Sometimes it just takes a little digging, a little curiosity, and the ability to put pieces of a puzzle together. So the defense is putting the pieces together since prosecution and law enforcement did not. Very early on, multiple tipsters contacted law enforcement via the tip line requesting the Brad Holder be investigated as a suspect, but Liggett and Unified Command quickly cleared Holder as a suspect despite mounting evidence linking Holder to Abby Williams and the crime scene. So yeah, because his son is dating Abby, and you can't deny that, or did date Abby. I don't know. Somewhere here I think it says they're exes, and somewhere I've seen it both ways. So it's just interesting. But either way, they had a connection with Abby and to the crime scene. So, especially with the pictures that Brad Holder was posting. My water. All right. So very early on, multiple tipsters contacted law enforcement via the tip line requesting that Brad Holder be investigated. All right. So within days of the girls' ritualistic sacrifice, law enforcement started receiving tips from citizens who thought Brad Holder was possibly involved in the unalivings of the girls. For example, a report ending in 48 was submitted at 7:21 p.m. Eastern on February 16th, so 3 days after the girls disappeared. The narrative on this report stated the following: father of Logan Holder, ex-boyfriend of Libby, social media shows him. He's actually the ex-boyfriend of Abby, so they got that wrong. But this isn't a report that anyways, so father of Logan Holder, ex-boyfriend of Libby, social media shows him a member of Vinlanders, posts of half unalive women, and fascination with gothic figures and symbols out of tree branches. So like the runes that were made on the girls after they were left there unalived. So this tip intake was shown as being evaluated by Delphi investigators only 10 minutes later, 7:31. The evaluator of that intake concluded that the tip required a lead. 2 days later, Tony Liggett himself at that time approved the lead, therefore requiring further action be taken on the lead. Exhibit 45 was previously submitted as an unredacted copy. Okay. However, only 13 days later, Liggett would change his mind as to the importance of Brad Holder as a suspect. On March 1st, 2017, a report identified ending in '03 was reviewed by Liggett. This report was a local police report that was almost a word-for-word regurgitation of an FBI report discussed below. At the end of report '03, Liggett concluded that no leads required. This means, after reviewing the contents of '03, Liggett was not interested in following up on Brad Holder as a lead. So, why is that? We need to know. Why was he excluded so early on? I mean, we're like 16 days into the investigation, and they excluded him. They were already looking into him. They had tips that it could be him. But nope, they excluded him. I don't know. On February 17th, 2017, the FBI interviewed Holder at the Delphi Police Department. The turnaround on interviewing Brad Holder was very quick, as only 3 days had passed since the girls were found unalived. Attached is Defense Exhibit 73, which is the FBI report that memorialized that interview. According to the report, the below is an interview summary. It is not intended to be verbatim account and does not memorialize all statements made during the interview. Communications by the parties in the interview room were electronically recorded. The recording captures the actual words spoken. Emphasis added on the communications by the parties in the interview room were electronically recorded. As stated earlier, after over 9 months, Rick's defense team still does not possess this electronically recorded interview of Brad Holder. Where is it? Why don't they have it? They were supposed to have gone to trial last month, and this was filed in, I think, like October or something of last year. October, September, something like that. So, why? I don't know. They never received it, and they were supposed to be going to trial, so they're not receiving discovery in a timely fashion. If there is even a recorded interview of Brad Holder and what it's about and why did it disappear if we don't have it. Otherwise, okay, so presumably the electronically recorded interview still sits in the Delphi police station or possibly at the prosecutor's office, as the defense learned on September 11th that more discovery is ready to be picked up. Also, in this document, Holder told Special Agent Robert Pohl and Hammond's Police Sergeant Christopher Guti, Brad Holder, stated that his son, Logan, 16 years old, was a friend of Abby. On Monday the 13th, Holder received a text from the Delphi Police Department asking him, Holder, to call back. Holder called the officer back and had a short conversation, stating that he had never met the girls. The state police asked if they could examine Logan Holder's phone, and while they were collecting the phone, they informed Logan and Brad that the girls were deceased. Holder stated that, is there something there? Richard's defense team has not ever been provided with any electronic data taken from Logan's phone, nor any report of what was contained on Logan's phone. That's another big deal that they don't have that. Is it on purpose that they don't have these things? That's what the defense is trying to find out. So Holder stated that he visited Delphi every weekend to hang out with his friend Patrick Westfall. Earlier in this memorandum, it was learned that as of February 2017, Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall were no longer friends because of something that had just occurred in a pagan ritual in the woods by the river. What? Who? Okay. Yeah. So we did talk about this before. Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall no longer friends. Something happened in that February time in a woods with some kind of pagan ritual, and they got into some kind of a disagreement or something, and they're no longer friends. So there's a falling out between them. Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall were no longer friends because of something that had just occurred in a pagan ritual in the woods by the river. It is interesting to note that in this interview, Brad Holder did not let the FBI agents know that he and Patrick Westfall were no longer friends or the reason why they were no longer friends. So they're hiding this disagreement between them or falling out. Westfall lived in Delphi and was a friend of Holder in the army. Holder and Westfall served in Afghanistan together. When Holder would go to Westfall's house, he would bring his son Logan. Logan and Westfall's son would generally go to Canal Park and play basketball. Holder believed that this is when Logan would contact Abby. Okay. Holder never actually met Abby himself, and he believed that Logan only actually met her one time as they attended different schools. Holder knew Logan to communicate with her on the internet with his phone. Holder provided Westfall's phone number, and he also stated that Westfall suffers from PTSD and is on disability. Holder continued to state that he and Westfall started a tribe of Asatru followers. Asatru was described as a warrior religion popular with members of the military. Holder, Westfall, and Westfall's girlfriend, Rachel Miller, host Asatru meetings every Sunday at Westfall's house. Okay? So they do Sunday ritual at Westfall's house. Holder stated that there are only 5 to 6 regular members that attend. So that's interesting. There's just a couple people in this group. Holder was asked where he was on Monday. He stated that he was at work driving machinery at Waste Management in Buffalo, Indiana, until he clocked out sometime between 2 and 4. After work, he went to the gym, workout anytime in Logansport. Again, this very FBI report was later converted into a document that was reviewed by Tony Liggett. Upon reviewing this document, Tony Liggett concluded that no leads required. So all the information, remember, is filtering into Unified Command. So everybody that's working on this case, they have to bring their information to Unified Command, which is consistent of like Tony Liggett and Jerry Holman. I think that's his name, first name. And other officers that are like the higher ups, the sheriffs and whatnots. So, because Tony Liggett is the sheriff. I forgot what I was going to say. So yeah, we've got all of these Unified Command people getting the information, but then nothing's happening with it, it seems. It's like they're holding on to this information and hiding the bits and pieces that they don't want us to see. It seems that way, anyways. This very FBI report was later converted into a document that was reviewed by Tony Liggett. Upon reviewing the document, Tony Liggett concluded that no leads required. In his August 8, 2023 deposition, Tony Liggett explained the different phrases used concerning how law enforcement dealt with tips. In the deposition, Liggett could not remember the exact language used to describe the situation when there was nothing more that could be done with the tip, meaning the tip was at a dead end. In the deposition, Liggett said that he believed the phrase used by law enforcement officers in reports to denote when essentially there was nothing left to do with the tip, i.e. dead end, was no further leads. And that's according to his depo. In his deposition, Liggett also differentiated between the meaning of no further leads and another phrase that might appear on reports, fully covered. According to Liggett, no further leads meant that there was just nothing to this to start with. Fully covered means someone, i.e. law enforcement, did something with it and it was completed. So some kind of follow-up was done within regards to the lead. When pressed as to what those two phrases, no further leads and fully covered, meant in practical terms of whether there would be an expectation of further investigation related to the subject of the tip, Liggett said that both of these phrases meant that law enforcement had completed the work on the tip. In other words, the tip was dead. And that was from his depo. Alright, so it was obvious between Liggett's depo and language Liggett used in his report that ended in 03, no leads required, that he, Liggett, had concluded that there was no further investigation needed of Brad Holder at this time, because he said in his deposition that there had been nothing there from the beginning that needed investigating concerning Holder. So he's just flat out saying, there's nothing there. Lies, all lies. Meaning no more work to be done, no more investigation to be conducted concerning Brad Holder. I really think that they're just trying to cover somebody's ass. So nothing to see here. Holder had an alibi. Please look at the next suspect. That's basically what they're doing. On March 1st, 2017, Liggett essentially gave up on investigating Brad Holder because of Holder's purported alibi. At the time that decision was made, it was known that Brad Holder was a proud Odinite who loved to post about the pagan religion of which he was a part of. It was also known that he used sticks and tree branches to form patterns similar to those left behind at the crime scenes, because he made runes out of sticks all the time and posted them to Facebook, just laying on the ground. So it's a known thing that Brad Holder did this. Exhibits 75 to 84 are just a few of the images on Holder's Facebook pages, mostly before Abby and Libby's Un-Alivings. Law enforcement also knew at the time that Brad Holder was spending his weekends in Delphi with his friend Patrick Westfall. So we know Brad Holder he had the means and the opportunity to be there, and if they were planning something, it makes sense to be coming down there, I guess. Alright, so it was also known that Brad Holder's son, Logan, had some sort of, quote, dating relationship with Abby. This all seems like the type of information that would absolutely require an intense and continued investigation into Brad Holder, and not a no further leads tag from Liggett. It would be crazy to think that at that early stage of the investigation, and with all the information that was already known to Liggett, that he, Liggett, would assign the designation of no further leads, ending the investigation of Brad Holder only 15 days after the girls were found brutally murdered at a very bizarre crime scene. So perhaps Liggett typing in no leads required was simply a typographical error, or a clerical error, or an unfortunate oversight. Perhaps it was a one-off circumstance. However, other reports demonstrate that Liggett did not commit a typographical error when he typed no leads required into the March 1st, 2017 report. It was intentional or reckless. Bam. For example, another tip had been supplied to law enforcement on March 9th, 2017 at 10:17 p.m. under Report 34. An unredacted copy of this report has been attached and marked as Exhibit 85 and has been filed confidentially. In this report, the tipster told law enforcement that she, the tipster, had checked Brad Holder out and found him, quote, to be a dark and scary person through some of his postings on Facebook. You want to check him out, end quote. Again, this is another example of a citizen who knows nothing about the secretive crime scene, unlike law enforcement who knew that sticks and tree branches were placed on the girls. Yet, even without knowledge of the crime scene, the tipster, like many others, recognized that Brad Holder's Facebook page was dark and disturbing and required further inspection and investigation, especially knowing that Brad's son was dating Abby Williams. Wow. And here is the footnote here. After Richard Allen was arrested, defense counsel even received a tip from as far away as Australia from a gentleman named Joe Lewis, who thought the defense should focus on Brad Holder based upon a review of Holder's public Facebook posts. And there's an affidavit about that. Unified Command was based only a few miles from the Un-Alivings site and thought Holder was not even a suspect, yet a man 9,000 miles away was able to figure out the importance of focusing on Brad Holder. Yeah. The defense is saying this. These are the defense's words, not mine. Disclaimer. All right, so as the tipster proclaimed to law enforcement about Brad Holder, quote, "You want to check him out." Except the problem was that Tony Liggett did not want to check Brad Holder out. Quite opposite. After reviewing that particular tip sheet, as you can see at the end of the report, Liggett wrote, no leads required has been covered. Essentially, Liggett was saying, nothing to see here, please move on to a different suspect. Pretty much. In fact, as it relates to this tip, Liggett was doubling down on his concluding remarks by stating both that there was no leads required and that Brad Holder had been covered. There could be no doubt whatsoever that as of March 13th, so a month later from when the girls disappeared, March 13th, Liggett wrote down these words that no leads required and has been covered when it came to Brad Holder. And I don't know why. Did Liggett's refusal to investigate influence other law enforcement officers to clear Brad Holder as a suspect? According to the defense, yes. On March 14th, 2017, a tip came in identified as Report 75. An unredacted version is attached and marked as Exhibit 86 and filed confidentially. The tipster in Report 75 let law enforcement know that he, the tipster, had reviewed Brad Holder's Facebook page and posts and felt that Brad... I cannot read today. Sometimes the words just jumble because I'm trying to read so fast and I've got thoughts flying and it's just what I'm trying to say doesn't come out of my mouth. All right, so the tipster let law enforcement know that he had reviewed Brad Holder's Facebook page and posts and felt that Brad Holder put off a bad vibe. This lead was evaluated by Kevin Hammond, who was a member of Unified Command along with Liggett and Holman. Kevin Hammond wrote in his evaluation, no leads required, Brad Holder has been cleared. So now Hammond is writing that on his report. So Unified Command just, all of them are going to say Brad Holder is cleared. No, nothing to see here. Again, any even moderately curious human being would have looked at Brad Holder's Facebook page, compared images on Brad Holder's page to those of the crime scene, and then considered that Brad's son was dating Abby and that Brad was a part of what appeared to be a religious cult, and thought, wow, this is a guy we better investigate. Instead, Hammond followed Liggett's lead. In the system, Liggett had already cleared Holder, so that is exactly what Hammond did when entering his findings into the system. So who's corrupt? Are they both corrupt? Is it just Liggett? Is it a whole bunch of police officers and law enforcement? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Who is Liggett corrupt and he knew? Maybe he knows Brad Holder. Maybe he's part of the Vinlander gang. What do you think? Do you think any of the Unified Command people are part of this Vinlander group? I don't know. So two members of Unified Command, Tony Liggett and Kevin Hammond, had both disregarded the already mounting evidence that possibly pointed the finger at Brad Holder. Both Tony Liggett and Kevin Hammond had stopped the investigation into Brad Holder dead in its tracks by claiming that Brad Holder had been cleared as a suspect only 4 weeks after the girls were unalived. Did anyone other than local law enforcement clear Brad Holder as a suspect early on? Yes. On March 19th, 2017 at 11:23 a.m. Eastern, another tip came in that believed Brad Holder sounded like the man on the famous audio released by law enforcement, so the down the hill guy. An unredacted copy of this tip sheet is attached and marked as Exhibit 87 and filed confidentially. This time it was FBI agent Michael Peasley following the lead of Liggett, which indicated at the bottom of that report that, quote, Holder had been cleared. On April 14th, 2017, another tip came in claiming that Brad Holder had changed his appearance following the girls' Un-Alivings. This tipster further indicated that Holder had even attended the girls' funeral, and that although he typically did not wear glasses, he was wearing glasses at the funeral. This unredacted report, identified as ending in 62, is marked as Exhibit 88 and filed confidentially. So most of these are filed confidentially, I believe. Although other tip sheet reports exist that tell a similar story, the defense offers up one last report related to Brad Holder. So we could keep on going, but we're just going to give you this one last one. On August 14th, 2017, at 12:59 p.m., a woman contacted police. The report memorialized the tip as follows. 2 women posted to a Facebook group that Brad Holder was responsible for the homicides. The tipster saw this post and told the police the contents of the post. The tipster went on to summarize what she read. Quote, Holder is a pagan, ended the girls as sacrifices, and then an F on the victims' bodies. Holder's son, Logan, is Abigail's ex-boyfriend. So we're seeing ex-boyfriend. So I don't believe they went to the same schools. So they weren't even, I don't think they even really knew each other very well. So obviously the F left on the crime scene was not left on the girls' bodies, but rather on the tree, painted. So this tipster said it was on their bodies, but it was not on their bodies. It was on the tree, painted using Libby's DNA. However, how would this information concerning the letter F have been even known to anyone to talk about it? Because nothing had been leaked at that point. A curious person might ask, could it be that someone who participated in the Un-Alivings had talked about the crime scene with someone who then talked to someone else, slightly mixing up the facts, and the story passed from person to person, like the game of telephone, and it's just a slight detail gets off, and then the more and more you tell the story, it becomes more gruesome and more detailed. So law enforcement should have viewed this tip as something extraordinarily important because it was a tip that provided secretive information about the crime scene not known by the public. The information about an F being left at the scene was not only unavailable to the public, but there is no evidence that it was being discussed on the internet. This tipster could have been interviewed, but they didn't interview this person. The Facebook group members could have been interviewed. So anybody that had any knowledge or any kind of perceived knowledge about the crime scene, they could have been asking them this. They could have been interviewing them, finding out information. The state police or FBI tech people could have tracked down the people that posted the information to determine from where they received this F information. Continued investigation as to the source of the knowledge of the F discussed on the chat group could ultimately lead to someone who was at the crime scene and participated in the Un-Alivings. That is what good law enforcement would do. Instead, what happened? As you see on intake 25, and any potential investigation stemming from this potentially game-changing information of someone's knowledge of the letter F being involved in the crime scene ended before it even began. The defense has marked an unredacted copy of Report 25 as Exhibit 89 and filed it as confidential. The law enforcement officer that initially evaluated the tip must have understood the importance of the mentioning the letter F because conduct follow-up was the request made. However, the next person in the chain, Roland Purdy, upon reviewing the tip, simply followed the previous lead of Liggett and Hammond. When it came to possible further investigation of the tip generated from Report 25, Roland Purdy, in a report identified as 40, called Brad Holder fully covered, i.e., nothing further to do, nothing to see here. So who were these people that somehow knew about the F at the crime scene, and how did they obtain that information? The world will never know because Trooper Purdy allowed Liggett and Hammond's lead and buried the tip by claiming that Brad Holder had been cleared as a suspect. So we won't ever know who that person was at this point. To conclude this section on evidence of Brad Holder's involvement, Richard Allen's defense team would tell the court that Liggett was aware of the many ways detailed in this memo in which Holder was tied into the Delphi Un-Alivings. Yet despite his evidence linking Brad Holder to the crime, this is the dialogue between Liggett, who was answering defense counsel's questions at Liggett's August 8th, 2023 deposition concerning what Liggett claims his knowledge of Brad Holder was. Before we read that, at this deposition, the defense made a strategic decision to not alert Liggett that the defense, was fully aware of the Odinist ties to the crime scene, as well as the evidence linking Holder to the crime scene. The defense wanted to determine whether Liggett would be honest or whether Liggett would try to water down any discussion of Odinism and Brad Holder in an attempt to keep the defense off the scent of Odinism and Holder. So they're kind of playing a little trick here on the whatchamacallit? On Liggett, sorry. They're trying to play a little trick on him to see if what he knows about Odinism and if he's going to steer them away from it or not. So Liggett took the bait. The dialogue provides insight into Liggett's mentality. He was going to get the defense to believe essentially that there's nothing to see here concerning Brad Holder and Odinism and the connection to the crime scene. Please move on. All right, so let's read this real quick. Okay, so Brad Holder then. So was there any other reason that Brad Holder was a suspect or at least a person of interest other than the fact that his son Logan dated Abby? Liggett's response was, I'm sure there was, but I don't recall without reviewing his information. Nothing stands out to you as you sit there about why Brad Holder might have been a suspect? He says no, other than the connection with his son and Abby. Is that right? Correct. So, according to Liggett's deposition, he says that there's no connection other than that they dated, which we all know is bull now. So Liggett was on the Unified Command. Liggett was heavily involved in the investigation of the Un-Alivings. To feign ignorance like that concerning the Brad Holder component of the investigation is astounding. Unified Command was fully aware of the Murphy Forensic Clique investigation tying Johnny Messer and Elvis Fields to Brad Holder. In the deposition, Liggett had the opportunity to open up and say something like Brad Holder was heavily investigated. There was even a thought that he was tied into some guys down in Rushville. If you don't have that evidence yet, let me get that to you. In the end, we didn't think it added up. Right, like he could have just said, like, we looked into him and there was nothing there. But instead, he was just like, nope, no connection. Instead, Liggett took the bait and obviously tried to steer the defense away from the Brad Holder evidence linking Holder to both the crime scene and the Rushville crew. While Liggett's answer here, or with Liggett's answer here, it is not surprising at all, 0, that Rick's defense team did not receive important discovery concerning the Rushville investigation, particularly Click's April 28th certified letter to McClelland, and they finally got it on September 8th in a giant data dump. Again, McClelland only provided this discovery after Liggett and the prosecution realized that the defense was fully aware of the Rushville connections, and it was only a matter of time before we would learn of the non-discovered exculpatory evidence. You're supposed to hand that over. You're supposed to hand over exculpatory evidence. That's called discovery. That's your ethical right as a lawyer, Prosecutor McClelland. All right, so Liggett either intentionally or recklessly concealed the Odinite Brad Holder information from Judge Diner in his October 13th, 2022 affidavit for search warrant. Then Liggett and McClelland attempted to conceal exculpatory evidence from the defense. Had Judge Diener, I always want to say Diner, but it's Diener, known of this concealed evidence, then Diener would not or should not have signed the warrant. Yes. I mean, if there was exculpatory evidence and all this information about Brad Holder and Elvis Fields and Johnny Messer and and the whole crew, Patrick Westfall and all of them, then yeah, there never should have been a search warrant for Rick Allen, because there was no probable cause to even search. And had the defense not dug in hard and found the needles in the haystack that led to its knowledge of Holder and Odinism, then the defense may never have thought to ask for the missing discovery, and McClelland would never have turned over the Click letter to the defense. Without the Click letter, the defense would not have learned of other exculpatory evidence. Facts show that Liggett acted intentionally and recklessly. So that, my friends, is where we're going to end here. Oh, it's a really loud car that just drove by. Sorry. So we are now finally on page 90, and so we'll probably have maybe 2 or 3 more parts of this. Hopefully we'll be through with this soon. But yeah, so guys, what do you think? We've gone now from Elvis Fields and what's his face? Brad Holder. What do you guys think of Brad Holder and Elvis Fields being good for this? Or do you think that there's some other connection? Or do you think Rick did it? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what you guys are thinking about this case. It's really interesting. I just think it's so crazy how we're finding people in higher places constantly like trying to cover up information. I'm doing the Canton cover up, which is Karen Reed versus the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It's same thing, kind of, where they they're framing an innocent woman, but it's law enforcement and it's the district attorney's office that seem to be in on it. So I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. And so it just seems like there's so much corruption and cover-ups from people that are in positions of power that shouldn't have that power, apparently. That's my take on it. What do you guys think? Please let me know in the comments below. I'll talk to you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.